Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bolt fam. It's the director. Chargers fans. Yeah, we got another mock draft today. I got a serious condition. I can't go 12 minutes without talking Chargers, especially with the draft being only 2 days away. Oh my God, the hype could not be more real. And I got thinking that there was a topic, a version of an NFL mock draft that I wanted to do that I haven't done yet. And that's a predictive mock draft, trying to predict the most likely picks for the Chargers throughout, the 1st to 7th rounds. I get it, guys. The first round, maybe even the 3rd round, are going to be somewhat easier to predict. After that, things get kind of crazy, but I do think this kind of gives a nice roadmap of what I think the Chargers are realistically trying to do. So in today's video, we're going to do a mock draft with no preferences, no bias, just straight predictions from the director, and it should be a good one. It's going to be a pretty difficult one too, man, because the Chargers, like it says here, have been very secretive. They don't really let things leak out into the universe very often, so honestly, they could do anything, but I have a gut feeling on a couple of different picks I think they're going to make, and the Chargers are in win now mode, so you can make the case for best player available, trying to go out there, maybe even getting a position of need. You never know. So in the comment section below, guys, please let me know. Here's our question for the day. If you had to guess, if you had to predict who the Chargers are picking at pick 17, who would it be? And yes, I'm going to allow trade scenarios and that too, just to make things a little bit more fun. Before we do get started, guys, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this predictive mock draft. Lights, camera, action. NFL draft predictions, the most likely players for the Chargers to select in the 2022 NFL draft. So as we always do in these videos, guys, here's a quick refresher on the team needs. Again, nothing's changed. Nothing will probably change until much after the draft when the Chargers maybe pick up, their obvious draft players and then maybe additional free agents. But till then, here's an obvious refresher. Right side of the line, we want to improve the run D if we can. Dynamic wide receiver, speed wide receiver for Justin Herbert, running back too, a bruiser back, and then depth at various positions. So with that, guys, we're going to get into this one. A little bit different than my previous videos because of the way this draft is structured a little bit. Of course, I'm going to have my preferences in every single round. Players that I'm high on, players that are my guys. We're going to try and push that aside, but I am going to include them in this video as showing you kind of my thought process in selecting these individual players. So let's get into it. In the first round at pick number 17, the Los Angeles Chargers are going to select... Well, here's first my who I want prediction. This is how it's going to work. In round number 1, pick 17, who I want, Jameson Williams. I think everybody knows this. He's my highly preferred round 1 player. That speed, combined with Justin Herbert, just brings so much playmaking potential. That's exactly the kind of element I want to bring to this offense. But that's the player I want. Additionally, I'm also going to list the player that makes sense to me. The player that makes the most sense to me at pick number 17 is going to be Zion Johnson. But even before that, I think it makes most sense for Chargers to trade down this season. Of course, there's a lot of different scenarios for the Chargers in trading down. But my thought process behind that is let's grab some more draft capital and maybe better position ourselves to grab an offensive lineman in round 1 if that is indeed the plan. The only guy that I would shift away from that plan if available at pick 17 would be Zion Johnson. So who I want, Jameson Williams. Who makes sense, Zion Johnson. My prediction for the first round pick for the Chargers at pick number 17 is going to be Trent McDuffie. Out of Washington, cornerback. Yeah, I know this one probably throws people for a loop. I think also at the same time, I've seen a lot of hype around Trent McDuffie going to the Chargers. And let me tell you guys this, dudes. If you have not looked up any highlights, any tape, any, film whatsoever on Trent McDuffie, do yourself a favor and go, bask in the greatness of this football player. This dude is one of the best players in the NFL draft this season. And he is getting overshadowed because, yes, there is some crazy talent in front of him in a mock Ahmad Gardner, of course, Derek Stingley, who's been heavily linked to the Chargers. But Trent McDuffie, do not sleep on this guy. He is being snubbed right now because of his size. I think he's somewhere around 5'11". He's actually not even that short, but 5'11", around the same size as our current cornerback in J.C. Jackson. A lot of people are overlooking him because of the attractive traits carried by Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley, who are both over 6'1". I get it, dudes. That is the kind of archetype that you're looking for in the modern NFL, right? You want a guy that's big and physical that can go up, toe-to-toe against these guys like, Deebo Samuel, which, who knows where that guy's going. And then guys like DK Metcalf, you want those big physical cornerbacks to match up against him. But do not overlook the talent of a guy like Trent McDuffie. And I think the Chargers are a good team that understands the value of those kinds of players. There's a reason why Asante Samuel Jr. fell into the second round for the Chargers last season. It's because, again, those physical traits are not something that's in his portfolio. He's around 5'10". The Chargers did not care, and they were heavily rewarded last season by selecting Asante Samuel, especially at such a great value. I'm going to urge the Chargers to maybe make a similar decision in round 1 this season with a guy like Trent McDuffie. This dude is so physical, especially given his size. And again, I don't think he's that short, but at the same time, not as big as the other cornerbacks, but this dude plays big. And when I say big, I mean physical, I mean punishing. The hits, the tackles, the kind of, force that he brings into his playmaking is super, super impressive. I think the biggest trait that people love about McDuffie, though, is his agility. The dude is extremely agile, can turn on a dime. The dude keeps up with some of the best, wide receivers in the country. He can book it. So when it comes to size, when it comes to speed, when it comes to coverage, this dude really has it all. I'm going to read this out here. Superb in coverage all over the field. I think he's being touted as one of the best zone corners in this draft, but do not overlook his ability in man too, dude. This guy can get real sticky. I love everything about Trent McDuffie, and I think it's a guy that Brandon Staley would absolutely love. Before we close the book on Trent McDuffie, we do have to talk a little bit about Brandon Staley. He has been talking a lot about adding more corners this season. Of course, we went out and did that with J.C. Jackson, but there's been a lot of whispers about him wanting to do the same thing in the NFL draft. Of course, the Chargers might be able to land a guy like Derek Stingley if he does fall. Maybe, Brandon Staley was serious about wanting to trade up and get him, but at the same time, Trent McDuffie at pick number 17 would be a huge value in my opinion, and one that would add a very scary element to this Chargers defensive backcourt. Dude, you have no idea the kind of plays that Brandon Staley would be able to unleash with a guy like Trent McDuffie. And a guy like Trent McDuffie, I could honestly, view as a guy that you're going to blitz from the cornerback position quite often. This guy brings a lot of force. I would see him as the kind of guy that can force a lot of fumbles, especially going up against the quarterback. So love everything about Trent McDuffie. He's going to be my prediction at pick 17 for the Chargers. We haven't talked a lot about him because, of course, I like talking, upside. The guys who are like, oh my God, pick 17, we landed Derwin James, let's do that again. But realistically, I think Trent McDuffie should be there. And if he is, I think it's going to be one that the Chargers definitely, run the card up to the podium for, okay? Next up, in round 2, the Chargers, once again, do not have a second-round pick. It was traded away for Khalil Mack. And in this instance, I do not think the Chargers trade up back into the second round. Of course, I think it's a move that would be pretty aggressive, one that I would endorse. But predicting the NFL draft, I think they do stay put. So we're going to skip to round 3, where the Chargers do have a pick at pick number 79. At pick 79, the Chargers. Who I want. Okay, we'll start with that. I think at this point, if you've selected Trent McDuffie in the first round, you're down here in the third round, you're going to want to target yourself an offensive lineman. Okay, the Chargers, as much as we want to hope that offensive line could be good with Matt Feiler at right tackle, maybe introducing Brendan Hymus at left guard, I do think it needs some more additions. Okay, and I do endorse that strategy of Matt Feiler to right tackle. I think if I had a preference, keep him at left guard, but he can be a very serviceable right tackle too. As for who I want, if I'm looking at this point in the draft and Abraham Lucas is available, I think this is a move that you heavily have to consider, right? Abraham Lucas could certainly bring that element to right tackle that honestly could be serviceable for the Chargers in 2022 and beyond. Who I think is a player that makes sense to the Chargers here at pick number 79 is D'Angelo Malone. And I think this is a player I selected in the 4th round in a recent mock draft. He has been climbing boards recently, and I still do think that the Chargers yes, edge is very much so set with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. You want to bring in guys to rotate, and I think D'Angelo Malone is one of the best scheme fits in this NFL draft, especially considering outside the first 2 rounds you could possibly add in this year's draft. So I'm going to say D'Angelo Malone definitely makes sense for the Chargers at pick 79. However, my prediction for the Chargers in round 3 at pick number 79 is going to be Sean Rhyan, offensive lineman out of UCLA. Now, notice how I didn't put interior or offensive tackle. This is because of the versatility you're going to find in a guy like Sean Rhyan. This dude, ex-rugby player, very athletic for his position, right? But at the same time, he does have upside at both guard and tackle, depending on where you want to play him. I think he is pretty big, 6'5", obviously got good weight on him. I do think the Chargers, if they decide to go this route and Rhyan is on the board, will find an immediate starter at guard at worst with tackle upside. His growth has been very solid and consistent throughout his career at UCLA, and I do think the Chargers should add an element at camp where maybe Rhyan gets some reps at right tackle to see if he can fill in that spot. If it feels like he's going to be better suited at guard, go ahead and play him at guard and have Matt Filer kind of swap positions with him if that kind of makes sense. So either way, your bases are kind of covered. You have the upside of Rhyan at right tackle, but at the same time, if you need to go to that plan B, I feel very confident that Rhyan could be the guy at guard to keep Justin Herbert upright this season, as well as provide solid running lanes, which is, I would say, definitely his forte coming into the draft this season. So at worst, it gives us a solid Filer replacement, and I do think this would be a great value for the Chargers in round 3. And once again, it's one of those players that we haven't talked much about. Rhyan has been moving all over the board in a couple of mock drafts. I was able to snag him in round 3, and this is definitely kind of player highlight fit that I think the Chargers would be all over in round 3 when it comes to addressing that offensive line. In particular, when talking about his versatility at guard or tackle, very reminiscent of a Matt Filer in those instances, okay? Next up in round number 4. This one might shock some people, okay? Both in the players that I want and will predict. In round 4 at pick number 123, who I want the Chargers to target at this point, grabbing Trent McDuffie and grabbing Sean Rhyan, I think the Chargers would be wise to go after that speed wide receiver in round 4. Tyquan Thornton is a guy that I've been targeting in round 5. Let me tell you, dudes, he has been climbing boards. If he's available in round 4, I am screaming, I am shouting, I am running that card up to the podium, because the more I look at Tyquan Thornton, the more I'm becoming impressed with what he offers in addition to his speed. He actually has a lot of attractive traits, revolving around the wide receiver position. Is that the guy we pick? I don't know. It could certainly still be. So a Tyquan Thornton be the guy that I select, who makes sense to the Chargers, and I'm still going to be pounding the table for this guy as a fit for LA, is Phidarian Mathis. Maybe I cheated a little bit. These are 2 of my guys that I would love in the 4th round. You're going to grab yourself another beastly defensive lineman to go out there and improve that run defense that so desperately needs the help. But my prediction, and again, this is where things might get a little nuts. My prediction for the Chargers in round 4 of the NFL draft at pick number 123 is going to be Dameon Pierce, running back out of Florida. Now, I get it, guys. Some people, and I almost feel the same way. I feel like as far as the archetype of running back that we're looking for, there are some pretty solid options in the 5th, 6th, and maybe even 7th round for what the Chargers are trying to accomplish. A big, bruising running back that can help us in short yardage situations. However, I do need to point out, when I'm going with my gut and everything, right, the Chargers are deadly serious about running back too. I don't know how much I've read in support of that, but this is a gut feeling. We saw with our own 2 eyes what the Chargers were doing last season, especially late last season, in rotating in pretty much every depth, running back on our roster, seeing if somebody could take that running back 2 role and run with it in 2022. They have done a lot of work in trying to find the guy that's going to be playing behind Austin Eckler. And I know some people may be thinking that round 4 is a little bit sweet in taking a running back. I would have to disagree if Dameon Pierce is available. He is one of the few guys where I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and grab a guy round 4, round 3. Dameon Pierce to me could be the guy the Chargers are looking for. And simply it's because Dameon Pierce might be one of the most NFL-ready power backs in this class, okay? I do love the upside of a Brian Robinson. I do love taking Tyler Algier a little bit later, but Dameon Pierce, who has been available more often than not in multiple mock drafts, which let me go ahead and add this in here. I do mock drafts on multiple websites, whether it be PFF, Pro Football Focus, and of course the Draft Network. Dameon Pierce has been available more often than not in round 4. Do I think that happens on draft night? It definitely could. I would give it a 50-50 shot. And if the Chargers see a running back they like in round 4, I can honestly see them pouncing, right? Fits like a puzzle and sharing snaps with Austin Ekeler. Dameon Pierce shared that time in the backfield with the Florida Gators, and I do think that it has given him some room to come into the NFL into a similar system with the Chargers, or at least in sharing time with an Austin Ekeler, and it'll make his life in the NFL a lot easier, while also adding to this team exactly what the Chargers are looking for. This fits like a puzzle, you know, in sharing reps with Austin Ekeler. You got Austin Ekeler, your featured running back, and then you're mixing in Dameon Pierce on those plays that you're going to have to pick up those tough yards between the tackles. I think that Dameon Pierce, to me, of course, is going to need some work before he starts thinking about, you know, taking more reps and becoming like a bell cow sort of running back, but we don't need that on the Chargers. That's why I think this is a great fit. He's reliable in pass protection. He's a decent pass catcher. One of the safest picks in round 4 if available. I think the Chargers might surprise some people and take a running back a little bit sooner than we're all expecting. So let me know what you guys think about that one in the comment section below. It did kind of throw me off too, but I was like, just go with your gut, director. If you feel like they're so serious about running back, go ahead and take one a little bit earlier than you have been in these mock drafts. Next up, the Chargers in round 5 at pick 160. After addressing running back, offensive line, and cornerback, this is what I'm looking for them to do. At pick 160, who I want is Amari Barno. We've been selecting Amari Barno with our first 6th round pick in most recent drafts, and that's because I love the dude's athleticism. This dude is scary fast, running a sub 4.4 in the combine with crazy good traits as far as size, speed, and physicality. He needs some work on his technique, but I love Amari Barno, and this would be the guy that I'm looking to add in round 5. Who makes a lot of sense to the Chargers in round 5, however, in my opinion, is going to be JoJo Domann, who is that safety linebacker hybrid that the Chargers need. And the reason I'm starting to climb a little bit on the need of drafting a linebacker is simply because of the health of Kenneth Murray. I think yesterday Tom Telesco talked a little bit about him not being able to participate in OTAs, maybe also missing a little bit of camp as well. The Chargers are a little bit thin when it comes to depth at linebacker. Of course, they've got Ogbongbemiga, they've got Neiman, and of course the new addition in Troy Reeder, but you might want to find somebody that's a little bit more groomed to the sort of archetype that you want in a pass coverage linebacker. Still, that's a guy that makes sense to me. My prediction in round 5 at pick number 160 for the Chargers, however, is going to be, and this one might be another shock to guys, Danny Gray out of SMU, a wide receiver. This is a guy that I've been wanting to talk about a little bit more, but he hasn't really lined up in terms of where I feel comfortable taking him in the 4th round. I've seen a lot of drafts recently where he is falling into the 5th round, and this is definitely where I'm feeling like, let's go get the guy. If I had my choice between him or Tyquan Thornton, I would definitely go pick up Tyquan Thornton, who in my eyes is definitely starting to climb boards. I don't think he's going to be available in round 5 anymore, but if Danny Gray is available in round 5, this might be a great addition for the Chargers, and it's one that I know a lot of Chargers fans have been asking me about in the comment section below. After looking into Danny Gray, this would be a solid pick, and it's one of those picks that feels very Chargers, right? They come out with the wide receiver. We have a specific kind of wide receiver that we need, and the name just doesn't match up with a lot of, you know, the names that we have in our minds. But Danny Gray might be one of those gems in the middle rounds that you can snag in the 5th even. To me, Danny Gray is one of the best budget vertical threats that you're going to find in the middle to late rounds, just kind of depending on how teams feel about him. I've been hearing a lot of buzz revolving around Danny Gray being one of those gem sort of dudes, and I think that what he brings in terms as an NFL player is exactly what the Chargers are looking for. He ran a 4.33. He's explosive. He's twitchy. He has that yards after the catch threat that the Chargers desperately do need from their wide receivers. I think Danny Gray might be a sneaky good pick in the 4th or even 5th round for the Chargers. We're going to select him right here. He's got excellent tracking, perfect for H-bombs, which we refer the Justin Herbert deep ball. I think that this is definitely one of the perfect sort of guys that you can add in the middle rounds that maybe doesn't have a lot of hype, but can bring a lot to the Chargers offense specifically. Now, he's not going to be one of those guys that I'm as high on, let's say Tyquan Thornton or even Jameson Williams. He's not as complete as those dudes, but he does bring the speed and he does have room to grow. He's not particularly physical when coming up down with catches, in coverage. He does need to be open more often than not, but he is really good at getting open, which is a big reason why I think the Chargers are going to love this guy. His route running definitely needs refining, but he's going to be learning from the best in Keenan Allen. I think the upside of Danny Gray is enough for me to take a shot on him in round 5 and hope to add more speed to this offense, which again, desperately needs it. All right, guys, here we go. Round 6, pick number 195. This one was definitely difficult for me garnering, what we have added so far. The Chargers got their speed wide receiver and Danny Gray. They got Dameon Pierce, the running back, too. Sean Ryan, their offensive lineman, and Trent McDuffie, of course, in the first round. Here in round number 6, the guys I'm kind of have my eye on. Kellen Diesch is definitely one of those dudes, offensive lineman. I think the Chargers at this point, especially at tackle, would still be wise to take more depth here. Even if the plan is Matt Filer, a guy like Kellen could certainly add more depth and a little bit more security when it comes to having your bases covered in the event that you're going to need to call on a backup. I think a lot of people are hoping that Storm Norton maybe moves to guard, or we add another guy to battle with him in camp. Who I think makes sense here is still Amari Barno. That's who I wanted in round 5. If he's available in round 6, I think this is one of those guys you really have to pounce on, and I do think adding edge help is something at this point in the draft I'm heavily focused on. However, in round 6 at pick number 195, I have the Chargers selecting Neil Farrell Jr. out of LSU, and this one was extremely difficult for me to gauge as far as who the Chargers are going to pick and who's going to be available. When it comes to mock drafting from various sites and various sources, a lot of these guys' ADP or their average draft position is kind of all over the place, and I think Neil Farrell is definitely at the top of my list of he's just kind of sometimes in the 6th and 7th, maybe even undrafted on some lists, and then other lists he's in like the 4th or 5th round. So I'm feeling like we're going to take him here in the 6th, maybe hope that he's available in the 6th round for the Chargers, and this is definitely where I would take a shot on him and where I think the Chargers are going to be looking to add more bodies to that defensive line. The Chargers need to add more big guys on that defensive line. I want an earlier pick. Of course, Phidarian Mathis is the name that I've been screaming to the heavens, hoping the Chargers select maybe in the 3rd or 4th round, but Neil Farrell to me is a pretty good value in my opinion in the 6th round. He is a nasty run defender. He is a huge human being. He's definitely the sort of archetype that you're looking to hold down the position of nose tackle. Very good versus the run, and again, this is the whole mindset behind taking a guy like Neil Farrell. You want that size. You want the kind of guy that can eat up space in the middle of the field, and you can mix him in with your other versatile defensive linemen in Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day. He feels like a very, very good fit to me for the Chargers in helping address a problem that was such a huge problem in 2021 in that run defense. I think Neil Farrell would bring a lot to the table, and you can maybe even start rotating him in 2021 or in 2022 if necessary versus the run. He certainly does need refinement, but he's got some of the best teachers in the NFL when it comes to playing defensive line on the Chargers. I think Neil Farrell would be a solid pick in round 6, in round 6, and I do think it's one I can definitely see the Chargers in my predictive mock draft taking a shot on here at pick number 195. All right, guys, from here on out, these late round picks, certainly extremely difficult to gauge what's going to happen here, but for the sake of time, we're not going to include who I want and who makes sense for the rest of the draft here. We're just going to kind of skip into my prediction. So my prediction here in round 6 at pick number 214 for the Chargers, this is our second 6th round pick, is going to be Jeffrey Gunter out of Coastal Carolina, edge. This might be a guy who, and it says it right here, that might carry potential gem potential in day 3, right? Big dude, edge threat, forced 9 fumbles and 2 blocked kicks throughout his career, so he does bring a lot of special teams upside, in my opinion. And this is the point where I think it's like, it's now or never. You're going to have to find yourself a nice backup edge to rotate in with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Chris Rumph. Of course, I'm not as worried about edge as other people because I do think there are some, decent free agents out there that we could still target, maybe even undrafted free agents after the draft. But if I'm looking for a guy that I feel good about, Jeffrey Gunter is one of those last dudes in the round 6 where I'm like, let's go get this guy and feel good about, edge 3 and 4. Big size, 6'4", good speed at running a 4.7 at the combine. I like a lot of the traits that Gunter brings. Very physically powerful. He's got a nasty bull rush. However, he does need to refine his technique just a little bit. And of course, he's going to get all the help in the world while rushing with Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack in camp. Next up in round 7, of which the Chargers have 4 7th round picks. We're going to start here with Zachary Thomas, offensive tackle out of San Diego. Again, ADP at this point is kind of all over the place. I've seen Zachary Thomas in the 7th round a lot, so we're going to take him with the first 7th round pick here. A nice backup guard or tackle in the 7th round is kind of what I'm looking for. And Zachary Thomas, to me, very solid run blocker. He can play right tackle. He can give you options when it comes to we need a backup guard, we need a backup tackle. I would personally maybe groom him as a backup swing tackle at the NFL level, where a lot of people do think he would be a better guard. He's got great size, strength. He's got good upside, in my opinion. Again, needs work on his technique, but at worst would be a nice backup guard and, in my opinion, a swing tackle. Our second 7th round pick, in my opinion, should be Isaac Taylor-Stewart. Of course, the Chargers did invest their first round pick in Trent McDuffie at the cornerback position. I think you got to go back to that well, especially if you're going to be using your cornerbacks and your defensive backs more often in this brand new Brandon Staley system. He's a tall 6'2" athletic depth corner, in my opinion. He does need work in coverage, guys. I think, sometimes he can look a little bit lost, but I think, again, working with Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, it's going to help him improve a lot. And again, at worst, I think we got ourselves a solid, physically, pleasing in terms of what the NFL is looking for in his attributes. I like him a lot. He's disruptive in contested catches, and I think he's going to give the coaches a lot to work with in terms of a backup corner. So I like him. At pick number 255, the Chargers here with the second to last pick. I'm still going to go Tariq Carpenter. I had him, I think, in my last mock draft. I'm going to go right back to that well. He's a hybrid safety linebacker, which, again, I explained in my last video, really fits what the Chargers are looking for. 6'3", 230 pounds, decent speed. I would play him at linebacker, which is a position a lot of people think he should transition to, and I think he'll bring a lot to special teams this season as well. So in terms of the Chargers getting some depth at linebacker, I think we're going to grab another guy here in Tariq Carpenter to add in with Troy Reeder and those other guys we've been signing this offseason. And finally, our last pick here in this mock draft is going to be Noah Burks, another edge. And I know that's kind of crazy to think about, do we need to have, 3 backup edge players on this team? I think at, pick number 250, or I think this should be 260, excuse me. I think with our very last 6th round pick, you should be looking a little bit more for guys that are going to compete in camp, right? And at worst, I think the Chargers, it wouldn't be a bad idea to roster, 3 depth guys at the edge position. I think this Chargers team is going to be looking to throw a lot of, blitz packages out there and a lot of heat at the quarterback. So maybe grab a guy like Noah Burks, who I think, could bring some versatility or could bring some, relief to some of these other pass rushers, some competition at worst in a rotational kind of role and backup kind of role. I think Burks is a decent scheme fit. He's not explosive, but he's good, versus the run. At worst, again, it's going to be another camp battle guy to add to this roster. So let me know what you guys think about this predictive mock draft. These ones are extremely difficult to wrap my mind around, especially in a season where I feel this draft may be one of the more unpredictable that I've seen, but in terms of, let's say the first 3 or 4 picks, I feel that that's a good roadmap for what the Chargers are trying to accomplish. And once again, Trent McDuffie, Sean Ryan, Dameon Pierce, Danny Gray, feels like you're feeling a lot of the things the Chargers are trying to accomplish with those selections and grabbing some pretty good value along the way. So you guys let me know what you think of this predictive mock draft. Do you think that some of these guys are going to be there, aren't going to be there? You think there's some better selections, or I would say maybe more likely selections to the Chargers than I have listed here? Well, guys, remember, Thursday is coming up really soon. We have our live NFL mock draft event going on that night. There should be thousands of Chargers fans in the chat as we, jump and roar and scream and cheer for the new Charger being added to this roster on April 28th. Make sure you guys are here. I will be streaming every single day of the draft as well, and kind of going along with the Bolt fam and celebrating, this ushering in of the 2022 NFL season. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Hit us up with a like and sub on your way out if you did enjoy this content. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Trent McDuffie, guys, promise me, go watch some highlights or something. This kid is insane.